So while I understand the intent, I really think that the committee should think twice about whether we want to continue to expand the universe of potential people that are under suspicion.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else over here? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Charlie Knobloch. I'm a lawyer out here from the represent the Mexican Criminal Defense Lawyers, and we adamantly oppose this bill. First of all, in a time where everybody's screaming poverty, we have no money, and so on and so forth, all of a sudden we want to implement this program. It's extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. We don't have the money to pay for it. Okay? Because this money is not out there in the state. We want to spend this for a program which is not going to do much good. Basically, what we're going to do is going to collect samples from everybody arrested for a felony. And incidentally, in New Mexico, it's a felony to fail to register as a communist. Now, do you want to take that kind of sample? No. Do you want to take a sample for some? There are many, many silly felonies out there. We don't want to take samples from everybody. As it stands, with the statute right now for sex offenders, for certain violent matters, okay, be as it may. Now, there's some utility to those. If we want to keep expanding this pool of samples, why don't we just take swabs from everybody born in the hospitals in New Mexico? We can have a huge sample effort, and it'll do absolutely no good, because we're going to be overloading the system. We don't have the money for it, and so it may sound kind of silly, but basically it turns our entire system on its head. You're presumed innocent until found guilty in this country, in this state. As it stands, we're going to take these samples from people, we're going to put them out there, and there's no mechanism. Look at the bill. There's no mechanism for removing those samples. When somebody is found not guilty, when felony charges are dismissed, if somebody pleads a misdemeanor offense, there is no mechanism in the bill for removing those samples. How do we deal with this? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else over here on that side? Okay, yes, in the back.
John Young, criminal defense attorney here in Santa Fe. The bill fails to distinguish between the innocent and the guilty. Continuing on a little bit what Mr. Knobloch said, there is no mechanism for expungement. There is no mechanism for accountability for this information if it's leaked to a third party and used for some untoward mechanism. That's all I have to say about the bill.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, in the back, please.
Sheila Lewis, criminal
You're going to
defense.
have to speak up.
Okay. My name is Sheila Lewis. I'm a criminal defense attorney. And the reason I oppose this bill is that it just creates so much pressure on this laboratory that the cases are going to back up and back up and back up. We already have a system that cannot handle medical evidence, DNA evidence, scientific testing in a reasonable amount of time. We're going to have people sitting in jails and in prisons waiting for their case to be heard because there is no lab report, there is no DNA report. We're going to have a huge backlog of work which is going to affect the entire system. And I think that's an important thing to consider. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Anyone else over here? Okay, members of the committee, maybe some of those points will come up in questioning. Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Governor Jay and the two senators. You know, this crime in Las Cruces, those of us that are from there know that this was one of the most heinous crimes of all time in Las Cruces. It was just terrible. And I commend the governor who was then DA that prosecuted the case. As I got to know Jan, one time she asked me if I knew of any group that she could talk to about Katie's Law, and I said, well, I belong to a group called Women in Government. If you want to come and speak to them in Seattle, Washington. She came, she spoke beautifully, eloquently. She has become so knowledgeable about DNA. I think she could teach some of the cops, I don't know. But she's become so good. I mean, she's really passionate and compassionate. And I, for one, in the beginning, I was scared of the bill. I said, oh my God, they're going to come after all of us and want to take our DNA. And I don't even know what that's like, but we, you know, Madam Chair, we were on the Senate floor yesterday with the issue of, what is it, fingerprints and palm prints and DNA, and this apparently is the most effective at this time. But I want to commend Jan and her husband for going around the states, and I think you have like 24. And she tells me that the lady that was so opposed to it in Washington is now going to support the measure and hopefully get Katie's law in there. Hope for a little bitty enhancement, I don't know that. But I applaud all of you and thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Yes, Senator.
Madam Chair and Senator Governor, and thank you for being here. Let me just say for every consequence or everything that happens, there's reaction to that as well. If DNA possibly identifies someone and it solves crimes, that's a plus. But it's my understanding also that DNA can be used to exonerate someone who may be falsely accused. This is just another clarification point of that has been given to our officers to make sure that the right determinations and the criminal defense attorneys and everyone else, whether or not this is being done correctly and the right person has been identified. So let's clarify that point. Secondly, I know that there is some cost involved in this, but secondly, what is the cost of life? Can you put a price on this lady's daughter? Can you put one on your wife, your parents? I'm sorry, but for me, that's not even a point of discussion. So with that said, Madam Chair, I would move for pass
Second.
on this.
Yeah, now I just want to make a technical point here, and that is, it's part of our rules that you can't debate the bill and then make a motion. So if you could...
I'm passionate about this issue.
Yeah, that's great, good. So we'll come back to you for the
Okay.
motion. Yes, Senator Griego and then Senator Nava.
Thank you,
Oh,
Madam
I'm
Chair.
sorry, Senator Eichenberg, you were...
I think Senator Eichenberg and Nava were before me.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Senator Eichenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, what, on page 1, lines 22 and 23, when it states that the DNA sample won't be taken if it has been determined that it already has been in another area. So how does one determine that?
I'll wait for you to finish that. Apparently you have.
I thought I had something.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, Senator, it would be on previous felony arrest. The DNA would have been taken. Or conviction.
Based on a conviction.
Correct.
Okay, now, when I had the opportunity to meet with J.M., so I don't know who's going to answer this question, but, and correct me if I'm mistaken here, but I think you told me that it would be expunged if you were not convicted. So nowhere in the bill does it show that, unless it's under the DNA Identification Act, and I'm not familiar with that. So where is the expungement?
Mr. Chair, and we have it right here, and I'll let Jan respond to that.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as part of the original Katie's Law, which this is just expanding or enhancing the Katie's Law, there is a provision for expungement. There's a lot of, basically, if anyone is not found guilty, they can have their DNA profile expunged. It requires that they request that that be done, and we have had several requests that it should be done, and it has been done. One of the things that I've been very, very interested in is whether or not it can be done completely, fully, and be, for all practical purposes, be erased, and that has absolutely been done. John Krebsbach could probably answer that and tell you exactly how it's done. But under the original Katie's Law, if for any reason someone is found not guilty of the crime that they were arrested for, they have the right to have their DNA profile expunged. There is a
And we're trying to
provision.
get the citation for that right now. Maybe you
We
can
have-
help
we have-
for us.
291610C. When a person's sample and DNA records are expunged from the DNA identification system, the head of the administrative center shall ensure that the person's sample and DNA records are expunged from CODIS. And it's a full page of exactly how it's done. It's 2916-2.
Thank you. Do you mind, Madam Chair?
Mr.
if
Krebsbach,
you
would
elaborate
you
a little bit further with
like to
that?
respond?
I'm sorry.
Could you elaborate a little bit further?
Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Eichenberg, members of the committee.
Then
Um,
say something again.
John Krebsbach, I'm the administrator for the New Mexico DNA identification system. So we're the ones that actually affect the current Katie's Law as well as